This is part 4 of the lecture for chapter 13. So we left off the last video with talking about the fact that essentially all we can conclude at this point is that at least one of the time points was different. But we couldn't really say which exactly of the time points were different or if all of them were different. So just like in chapter 12, at this point, if we have made that decision to reject the null hypothesis, we're saying at least one of these is different, but we need to do an additional step to figure out which of our time points was different from the rest. So the way we'll do this is, again, through a post-hoc test. So post-hoc tests, just like in the last chapter, are done when we make the decision to reject the null hypothesis in an ANOVA, and when that ANOVA is testing 3 or more levels. So just like in the last chapter, I discussed the fact that if we are only comparing 2 levels or 2 groups to each other, we would know that those 2 groups are the groups that are different. So it's only the case that you would need to do a post-hoc test if you have 3 or more groups that are being compared. Again, you also have to have made that decision to reject the null hypothesis. Had you failed to reject the null hypothesis, you are already saying that none of those groups are significantly different, so you don't need to do this additional post-hoc test. So you need to meet those 2 requirements in order to do the post-hoc test, or to need to do the post-hoc test. And remember that just like in the last chapter, post-hoc tests, what they allow us to do is to make what are referred to as pairwise comparisons. And what that means is that it allows us to compare 2 means to each other at a time. And so we'll compare 2 means at a time to see whether or not those 2 means are different from each other. So in the post-hoc test, the different pairwise comparisons you can make, I think it's usually easiest to start by listing all the different pairs of means that you can compare to each other. And you'll see why in a second. It's primarily because the output that we're given in SPSS is extremely redundant in that it gives us the same information multiple times. So I think it's best to start out by listing what your different pairwise comparisons are. So in this example, we had 3 different time points that we were comparing to each other. So one of the pairwise comparisons we can make is comparing that first time point to the second time point. So comparing the baseline measurement to the midpoint measurement. Another pairwise comparison we can make is comparing the baseline measurement to the endpoint. So comparing that first time point to the third time point. And then the last pairwise comparison we can make for this example is to compare that midpoint to the end. So just like in the last chapter, remember that you only have to compare each pair of means once. So it doesn't really matter whether you're listing mean 1 first and mean 2 second, just as long as at some point you're comparing those 2 means to each other. So the order of the means don't matter here when we're listing our pairwise comparisons. It just matters that we're comparing each of those different possible pairings to each other. So these are the 3 pairwise comparisons that we're going to make. So in SPSS, it actually gives you the output related to the pairwise comparisons in a different table. So I'm going to copy and paste a couple of different tables into the slides here, just so you could see the various parts of the output that we're going to look at to get information that's relevant to the pairwise comparisons. So here I have this first table is representing the means for each of our different time points. So this table is labeled estimates, and you'll notice that it separates each time point and tells you the mean at that time point. So this would be the baseline measure was time 1. There's the average GRE score at time point 1. Here we have time point 2. And there is our average GRE score at time point 2, that midpoint. And then finally we have our third time point, so that end measurement, and there's the average at that end time point. And so these are going to be very relevant as we go through interpreting our pairwise comparisons. So next, the table I want you to look at is the one that's labeled pairwise comparisons. This is where it's going to give us our actual results related to the pairwise comparisons. So as I mentioned before, this table is extremely redundant. So the main thing I want you to do is to take that list that we just created on that last slide and use that as a guide for how to look for the different pairwise comparisons that you're interested in. So the first pairwise comparison that we listed was comparing the first time point to the second time point. So we're going to look for the first time point in this column, and then we're going to identify the comparison to the second time point right here in the second column. So the main thing we want to focus on here is that sig value. So if Walter says hi, everyone, by the way, my cat Walter. If you remember from before, when we've talked about looking at SPSS output, we're going to compare the sig value to our alpha level. So anytime our sig value, which just represents the P, the probability, so anytime that's lower than our alpha level, that means that there is a significant difference. We reject the null hypothesis and say that there is a significant difference. So in looking at the pairwise comparison comparing time 1 to time 2, we see that this sig is definitely smaller than our alpha level of 0.05. And so our decision for that one would be to reject the null hypothesis, meaning that these two time points are significantly different. So if you want to know exactly how they're significantly different, look back to the means here. It does give you a different score right here that compares time 1 to time 2, but I think it's actually easier to look at just the means that are listed up here in this table. So you'll see that we already identified that this difference is significant by looking at this column. And if we want to know how they changed over time, we can see that this mean for time 2, it's higher than the mean for time 1. So we can see that the scores were increasing from the beginning, that baseline measurement, to the midpoint. And this is what tells us that that difference is indeed significant. So what I usually do at this point is I'm going to put a little star next to that to indicate that the comparison of these two means was significant. So there was a significant difference between the baseline and the midpoint. So let's look at the other pairwise comparisons. So the next pairwise comparison we want to make is comparing time point 1 to time point 3. So let's look back at our table here. And so again, we're comparing time point 1, and then we're going to look for time point 3 over here. So we're going to look across for this row here, will tell us about that comparison. And again, we'll just compare our value here in that row, that sig value, which is representing our p-value. We'll compare that to our alpha level. And again, just like before, this value is different, or it's less than our alpha level. So since that value for our sig is less than our alpha level, we would say that these two time points are significantly different. Again, we can look up here to our means and see that the mean from time point 3, it was bigger than the mean from time point 1. So that is how those two means are different, is that people's scores got better over time. And again, this is what tells us that that difference is indeed significant, since that value is less than our alpha level. So I'm going to go ahead and put a star next to that comparison as well. And then finally, we'll look in our table for this comparison between time point 2 and time point 3. And so here we're going to look for time point 2, and then time point 3 is what we're comparing it to. And so this comparison will just follow over here and look at that sig value in that column. So again, we're going to compare this value here to our alpha level and see that it's less than our alpha level. So again, this comparison between time point 2 in time point 3 is indeed significant. And we can also look up there again at our actual means to see that the mean for time point 3 is a bigger number, so scores went up from time point 2 to time point 3. And that difference indeed was significant. So like I said before, this table is extremely redundant because it gives you the comparison between time 1 and 2, and then it does the same thing again here, the time 1 compared to time 2. So it gives you the same information multiple times. So just make sure to look for the exact pairwise comparisons you're looking for, and that's why we listed them out on the previous step. So we just compared mean 2 and mean 3 and found that indeed that difference is significant. So we're going to go ahead and add the pairwise comparisons interpretation to the end of our conclusion. So let's add that first one. So I would just add like a separate sentence for each of these pairwise comparisons. So you'll see that I said, this is just an example of how you can report this, but I said that the Posthoc test revealed that students' scores significantly changed from the beginning, and there was the mean. We just talked about where to find that, but there it is. There's the mean at that beginning time point, and compared to the midpoint, and there was the mean for their midpoint. So that is reflecting that first pairwise comparison. Then we also want to say our second pairwise comparison, which looked at the difference between the beginning compared to the end. And if you remember from the last chapter, we only need to say the mean for each of these different groups we were comparing once. So since we already mentioned the mean at the beginning, we don't need to say it again. We hadn't yet listed the mean for the end, so that's why I added it there. And then finally, we can have our final statement here is reflecting that third pairwise comparison that we looked at, which was comparing the midpoint to the end. And again, it identified that scores did significantly change between those two time points. So this is how I would write up the conclusion as far as the post-hoc test goes. This might not be the most straightforward way to report your conclusion, but I recommend that while you're learning about how to report an ANOVA and post-hoc tests, I think the easiest way to do it is to just make a different sentence for each of your pairwise comparisons. And that will ensure that you haven't left anything out. So that's actually the end of this lecture. And I just wanted to give y'all who have stuck through up until this point the opportunity to get some extra credit. So I primarily want this extra credit to be a reward for the people who have, been consistent on watching these videos all the way to the end. So please don't share this with your classmates. Please let them find this nice little surprise at the end of this lecture if they so get to it in the time that they're supposed to. So if y'all can just send me a statistics related meme, just email it to me by the end of this week. So let's say by April 4th, send me your statistics related meme via email, and I will give you some extra credit to help reward you for your vigilance and your hard work as a student. I really appreciate y'all listening to these exciting lectures. I'm sure they're maybe not so exciting, but hopefully they're helping you out a little bit, get through this content, which I know, can be hard to just learn from the textbook. So enjoy and have a great week. Talk to you later.